Morning and welcome to Herald Now. I'm Garth Bray. It's Thursday the 4th of September. We've got all the news, views and reviews for you on the show today. Gee whiz, that's a lot of hardware. China shows how far it's come since World War II ended. What does it say about our major trading partner? We've also got eyes on our own defence industry and the rise of a startup that's getting drones aloft and deals done. So NZ Herald's technology editor Chris Keel's coming in to talk about SIOS. Ahead of that, what were the warning signs from the man accused of starting that fatal blaze at Wellington's Loafers Lodge? Melissa Nightingale, she'll be with us with the details. Plus, should we be treating caffeine like nicotine? The UK is intending to ban the sale of caffeinated drinks to under 16s from December. We're with someone who might want to revive that idea here. But first, here's news with Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
Reassurance our justice system as a whole is working as some issues slip through the cracks. Chief Justice Dame Helen Wynne-Kelman has issued a stark warning in her annual report. She outlines a justice system weighed down by delays, too few judges, safety concerns and a lack of funding. New Zealand Law Society President Fraser Barton says compared to overseas, New Zealand's justice system ranks very highly.
We mustn't be complacent, that there is still a lot of work needed to make sure that we don't fall behind.
The Education Minister believes her government's initiatives are boosting interest in teaching. Newstalk ZB can reveal there's been 3,500 new domestic enrolments to initial teacher training so far this year, 30% higher than the same time last year. Erica Stanford says there's more positive talk about the profession than negative, adding she's always talking up teachers. She says people can see the amount of resource they're pumping into the front line, whether it's maths books, professional learning and development, or the new curriculum. A rift between National and ACT is emerging on Auckland Council's new density plan. It would allow more intensification near transport corridors and see parts of the city lose their special character status. David Seymour told a public meeting last week that he and supporters must impress on Housing Minister Chris Bishop that the plan is not necessary. He's concerned intensification will take place in areas without the required infrastructure, citing Parnell as an example. Bishop says the reality of the council's proposal is much less dramatic than critics claim. Nelson and Tasman mayors are banding together to push back the closure of a local sawmill. Carter Holt Harvey is expected to deliver its final decision on a proposal to shut its Eves Valley sawmill today, resulting in the loss of 142 jobs. Nelson's Nick Smith and Tasman's Tim King have written to the manufacturing company pleading with them to defer closure for 12 months. Nurses around the country are set to begin their second day of industrial action over unsafe staffing levels in less than a week. More than 36,000 nurses organisation members employed by Health NZ are repeating Tuesday's strikes and putting tools down from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. today. The National Cyber Security Centre is urging businesses to up their defences against cyber criminals. Commissioned research from the agency has found 53% of small to medium Kiwi enterprises have been exposed to a cyber threat over the last 6 months. It's a jump from only 36% reported they'd been targeted in last year's survey. Mission Enablement Director Mike Yagish says that businesses they need to be preparing for a cybersecurity attack.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Broncos coach Michael Maguire has poo-pooed fullback Reece Walsh's decision to release a social media post of him drinking from a toilet ahead of tonight's NRL League match against the Storm in Brisbane. The Cadillac Formula One team has named IndyCar's Colton Herta as their test driver for 2026. Imane Khalif has appealed World Boxing's decision which bars her from events unless she undergoes genetic sex testing. The Algerian will miss competing at the World Championships starting tonight in Liverpool as a result.
Yesterday, I watched all 3 hours of China's Beijing blockbuster, so you don't have to. Yes, there were more soldiers in shot there than our entire army, and those robot dogs and tanks and underwater drones and information warfare troops on parade. Yes, all quite confronting, quite a flex of the muscles, especially after some warm-up comments I'd heard from a Chinese state media panel about restoring Taiwan to China being crucial to world order. But look, hear me out. what looks alarming to us, it might just be a way for the leader of 1.4 billion people to calm the farm. Xi Jinping was a bit on the nose last year with his people. China's economy's been in a wee bit of a rut. And remember, in World War II, China's mainland was invaded by Japan. 80 years on, there are people from Nanjing who still refuse to buy Japanese cars. Google what happened there and you'll know why. So while we fret about China flexing its muscles, maybe we need to think about who was the bigger audience yesterday. Maybe it wasn't about us on the outside. Here's the weather.
Herald Now weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora, good morning. Some wetter, windier weather moving up the western coast of the South Island today. Some heavy spells of rain and some thunderstorms. We'll find rain moving in towards Southland and Otago, but for dry weather, head towards the North Island and some pretty warm temperatures on the likes of the Hawke's Bay coast. We'll start off though down south with that wet weather moving northwards. Heavy spells of rain through Fiordland, some thunderstorms, patchy rain moving northwards through Southland and Otago through the daytime. For Canterbury, most of the time it's dry, bit of high cloud here and there, but not a bad looking story. The wetter weather on that western side though, again that risk of thunderstorms and hail moving up through Westland. For the lower parts of the North Island, dry and generally clear through Wairarapa, but the other side of the hills cloudier with an odd shower springing up as we head through the daytime. For some of the warmer temperatures, head to Hawke's Bay, 20 degrees Celsius in Napier, fine dry through the daytime, but a patchy cloud through the likes of the Bay of Plenty and Waitomo. Most of the time, I think it will stay dry. We could find an odd shower just run through the likes of Auckland and Northland, but very few and far between. Friday sees that wetter, windier weather moving up the country. There's already some severe weather watches in place for the likes of the Canterbury High Country and that western coast. Keep an eye on the latest watches and warnings, but it is more of an unsettled day for Friday.
Right, nuclear, intercontinental ballistic missiles, laser weapons and robotic dog drones, they're all on show at China's massive military parade. Let's just take a quick look now at some of that, shall we? So sitting here from the outside, looking at it globally, what does it all mean? We thought we'd better ask someone who knows a little bit more about this. Geoffrey Miller, who is a geopolitical analyst, joins me now from Dunedin. Good morning, Geoffrey. What was your takeaway from seeing those three major leaders, Xi Jinping, Putin, and North Korea's on sort of side by side for the first time?
Good morning, Garth. Well, look, this week has all been about symbolism. It started off in Tianjin, a port city in the north of China, and that's where the Shanghai Cooperation Organization conference was held. And that's where you saw Narendra Modi and Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping all huddled together, and those images came out at the start of the week. And then attention is now turned to Beijing for this massive military parade, the first big parade like this since 2019 in China. And the common theme for both has been the global south and non-Western leaders. And that's why you saw Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, the supreme leader of North Korea, were pride of place at this parade. They were the main guests. There was no mistaking that. They were the lead guests walking alongside Xi Jinping at the parade. It was very clear, the messaging, that there is an alternative to US dominance. This is it. And Xi Jinping is going to be the leader of that movement, in a sense. And that's certainly the image that China was trying to project here.
This is the sort of the BRICS are back, baby, or they're here to stay, and they are stepping up. I mean, they've all got their own particular interests, and probably if you say that they're all just aligned against the US, do they have that much in common, really?
Well, look, we're seeing increasing polarization in the world now. And to just underline that, we saw Donald Trump post on his Truth Social during that parade saying, give my best regards as you conspire against the United States of America. So
he hates being out of the headlines, doesn't he?
the world at loggerheads in a sense, or the world divided increasingly. And that's a trend that has been going on now for some time. especially since the COVID-19 pandemic. These geopolitical tensions have been ratcheting up, and you just have to reflect on how much has changed. This was the 80th anniversary of the Japanese surrender. There was a similar parade 10 years ago in 2015, and you think, what has changed since then? That was before Donald Trump in his first term, before COVID-19, before so many of these tensions that we've seen. And that parade back in 2015 had quite a large contingent of Western participants, Western leaders, Western ministers. This time around, they were noticeably absent for the most part from the guest list.
Although we did see Helen Clark and John Key, I watched them both getting the big handshake welcome. I thought, gosh, they're important. They're the first people there. Then you realise the most important people are actually at the back of the queue. So probably they were sort of down the pecking order, not being current politicians. But what do you think it says to China that you've got both a Labour or a national former Prime Minister turning up? Does that just look like, hey, New Zealand, you can, same, different, you can trust them no matter what?
Well, I think it was good that they were there. And they were representing, John Key and Helen Clark were representing New Zealand. They weren't representing the government in an official capacity. These were former leaders. China described them as statespeople, and that's why they were being invited. And there were quite a few others in that lineup. You had former leaders from the likes of Italy, Romania, a number of European countries were there alongside John Key and Helen Clark. So they weren't alone, and that was actually where most of the Western participants came in. It was in these former leaders, and certainly it was a throwback in a sense to the golden era of New Zealand-China relations. Look, China is still a massively important partner for New Zealand, New Zealand's biggest trading partner by some margin. But it is clear that there are tensions now in the relationship between New Zealand and China that perhaps weren't in the same way when Helen Clark and John Key were New Zealand Prime Ministers. So, look, the world is changing. I think that's obvious. This parade yesterday was just a visual representation, I guess, of just how much is changing in the world at the moment.
Do we think that the Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, might have had an invitation, and do we think that if he did, would it have been wise to accept it, or smarter to sort of try and push things the other way and have these eminent statesmen and women sort of turn up in his stead?
Yeah, well, from what I've read, he wasn't invited, and that was the case for most Western leaders. So there was no question to answer there. There was no invitation to accept or reject. If he had been invited, I think he should have accepted, because this is New Zealand's biggest trading partner, and I think you should be there. You should engage. I think we need more dialogue, more interaction. I don't think we get anywhere just sitting on the sidelines and putting out messages on Truth Social, and that's what Donald Trump's message is. I think you win when you engage, and in the end, we want to stave off a conflict and not enter one. And I think the way that you do that is through dialogue and through talking. So Xi Jinping made that choice yesterday between dialogue and confrontation. I think we should choose dialogue here.
Yeah, well, look, that was my takeaway too, to be quite honest. Jeffrey Miller, geopolitical analyst, thank you very much. Now, look, I don't know if the rest of you out there made much of that parade. I certainly thought there was some pretty alarming little bits of high-tech hardware in there. Tell us what you thought of all of that if you paid attention. You can drop us a line there at Herald NOW at nzherald.co.nz with your thoughts. Are we still good friends with China, or should we be looking elsewhere? Right. Back home here, we've had some concerning reports, I suppose, because you don't often hear much from judges unless they're passing judgment on a case. So when Chief Justice Helen Wynne-Kelman drops a warning that our courts are clogged and under pressure, we might just want to prick up our ears and have a listen. Simon Moore, KC, has been paying some close attention, and he joins me now here in the studio. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Garth.
Hey, thanks for stopping by this bright early morning. What exactly should we be worried about there? If we're talking about serious concerns, what are you seeing and hearing in judicial circles that back that up?
I think one of the greatest concerns we've got, Garth, is that we're really experiencing delays in the system, and while the delays mightn't be quite as evident in big centres like Auckland, where you've got a degree of scale, and you can move judges around, you've got more courtrooms. Yeah. In some of our regional areas where there is only one jury-capable courtroom, you're going to have, and we are experiencing, huge delays
And
in getting people to trial.
And that's an impact on victims. That's an impact on the police who are trying to keep things orderly. That's justice delayed for anyone who's hearing their case. That's a huge impact, isn't it?
Yes, I mean it has a real effect in all kinds of ways. I mean witnesses who have difficulty remembering what had happened 3 years earlier. Those defendants who are locked up for all of that time, they're on remand.
Right.
They haven't been, their guilt or innocence hasn't been determined.
And
it's just fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, and it's costing us as well, I suppose,
You bet.
isn't it? Yeah. So this isn't the judiciary crying poor. This is a real red flag going up, is it?
Oh yes, and I think you need to appreciate the real significance of what the Chief Justice did yesterday. Not only was the report published, but she came out and spoke to it,
right,
and was prepared to answer questions about it. And I don't think I've ever seen that before. So it gives you some kind of insight into what our most senior judicial officer in the country is thinking at the moment.
Well, we've certainly been hearing a lot from politicians about what they think of the judiciary. Is that a problem too?
It's a really good question. I don't see it really as a huge problem. These are more exceptions. I mean, we're not living in a country where the judiciary gets shot at in the way they are in other jurisdictions.
Or shouted at from the White House.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's rather what I was talking about. But, judges get criticised day in, day out. I got criticised for imposing sentences which were too light.
Yeah.
I even got criticised for imposing a sentence which was too strong. Right. Judges, that's part of our job. We're used to that. It can be a little irritating that, so often people who are critical, I'd say, well, look, have you read the judgment? No one ever has. And you get the reasons,
Just the headline.
Yeah. Well, judges are meant to give reasons. They do give reasons, and that's frustrating. But as far as politicians wading into judges is concerned, that's much more the exception than it is the rule.
Yeah. So the real problem then is just how do we get the system working? Is it just a case of spending more, or are there smarter things we should be doing?
Well, I think there are probably, there are all sorts of things. There are things in terms of legislative change that can be made in terms of eligibility for trials. That's a really contentious issue. Should you increase the threshold so that people need to be charged with a particularly serious offence before they're eligible for a trial by jury?
Might mean not so many people getting called up for jury duty as well, which should be probably welcomed by our population too, right? It's
a huge impost on people, but jury trials are really expensive, and they're not just expensive.
They're getting longer as well.
They're getting much longer.
Yeah.
They're getting much longer. But, the infrastructure to accommodate a criminal jury trial, you need 12 seats in a courtroom. You need to have a jury-capable room that can bring in defendants in and out, to the dock. Yeah. And you've got to have a jury retiring room. So these are bespoke courtrooms. They're not. You can't just throw a jury trial.
A couple of porta cabins out the back kind of thing.
Exactly.
Right.
You can't. You just can't.
Yeah.
So there is infrastructure costs, and of course judges. Judges are expensive.
And if we're serious about getting, tough or cracking down or getting fairer or firmer or whatever on law and order, I mean, is there a bit of flow through from those policies too? If you say, hey, we're going to, I think the current government said the previous one wasn't, was too light, was too easy on people. It wasn't encouraging the system to lock people up effectively. I mean, if you're putting them through the judicial system, you've got to have a judiciary and a system that's sort of fit for purpose, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of, pay the price.
Exactly.
Right.
And there are other things too. I mean, a lot of I can really only probably speak for the High Court and the Court of Appeal, which were the courts I sat in. But the overwhelming bulk of criminal trials is dealt with in the District Court, not in the High Court.
Yeah.
And in the High Court at the moment, and I can talk about Auckland, 80% of our criminal cases are homicide.
Wow.
Now, I know that's a lot higher than the national average, but it doesn't leave much room for the High Court to be doing cases other than homicide. And I think that has to be a bit of a concern as well. I mean, when I first started, there's a process by which cases are sort of triaged into the High Court system. And cases which are eligible to be heard in the High Court, say in drugs, importation of methamphetamine, for example, when I started looking at those cases to determine whether or not they'd go in the High Court, we were looking at, say, 10 kgs as being the threshold. It's now 100 kgs.
Wow. There's inflation.
Yes, exactly.
There's inflation for you. Simon Moore, KC, former High Court judge, now I think chair of the Electoral Commission.
That's right.
Here today telling us a little bit of insight about what's going on in our courts. Thanks very much for spilling the tea there. Look, coming up after 7:30, we've got a Kiwi tech success story. We're looking behind the scenes at Sios, who are making drones and selling them overseas. But next, the UK is looking at banning energy drinks for under 16. Should we be doing the same? The dentists reckon we should. The Dental Association's Rob Beaglehole is up next. That's right here.
Sing your heart out to Coast's feel-good 80s hits. Kenny Loggins, Whitney, John Farnham, Eurythmics, Bonnie Tyler, Eric Carmen. The most 80s are on Coast. Sing your heart out. Coast.
Of course we can set up the new smart TV for you. We can also put it on the wall for you too.
Want to keep your family safe online? We've got tips for that.
Yeah, I can show you how to use the AI on your laptop.
Teaching the kids to do laundry? These washing machines auto-dispense the perfect amount of detergent, making it super easy to learn.
Wait, what's a Ninja Creamy?
Got tech questions? We've got answers. With 66 stores nationwide, your tech experts ready to help.
Seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience, just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
We've done few subdivisions with GJ Gardner, and from the resource consent to the building consent, getting the council permits and stuff, always GJ Gardners are ahead and helping us out through the whole process, and it was so easy working with GJ.
Luke Combs, Morgan Wallen, Kaylee Bell, Jelly Roll, Megan Moroney, Chris Stapleton. All the country stars have come to play on the all-new iHeart Country NZ. Your new home for country is iHeart Country NZ.
You're with Herald Now. Right, you might have pulled into the petrol station for an energy drink already this morning, some of you. The UK government is forging ahead with a ban on sales of energy drinks to people under 16. There's a 12-week consultation now underway, with the ban promised to follow in the coming years. And joining us to talk about that is someone who's got a real focus on sugary drinks. That's Rob Beaglehole, who's a spokesperson for the New Zealand Dental Association. Joins us now on the line from Nelson. Good morning, Rob.
Oh, kia ora, Garth.
Fantastic to have you here. So if I get it right, your worry is more the sugar content than the caffeine content that we're seeing, or is the caffeine part of the problem too?
Oh, undoubtedly sugar and caffeine are part of the problem. But I guess from a dental perspective, we are greatly concerned at these energy drinks that are absolutely packed full of sugar. We know that some of these drinks have up to 20 teaspoons of sugar contained in just one beverage.
And that's from, I think, like, you tell me what's a safer amount then for people to be consuming? None?
Yeah. Well, the World Health Organization indicates that we should only be drinking 3 teaspoons of sugar per child per day, and adults 6. So if I give one of my sons a Rockstar Punched, for example, he'll be getting 20 teaspoons of sugar, which is about 6 to 7 times the amount of sugar he actually needs per day.
Right. We've done something with this though, haven't we? We've got some sort of a voluntary code around the sale of these sugary and high caffeine energy drinks to under 16s here, haven't we?
Well, I'm glad you picked that up, because back in 2019, the New Zealand Dental Association successfully encouraged one of our New Zealand's largest supermarkets, Countdown, instigating a voluntary ban. And this has been an outstanding success. I know that because when my son was 14, 15, he tried to buy an energy drink at Countdown and they ID'd him so he couldn't buy it. So, hats off to Countdown for showing leadership. But what we really need, we need other supermarkets also to follow Countdown's role. Ideally, we need government leadership in this important issue.
Do we think we're likely to get that though? This is a government that's probably trying to go regulation light, and they'd probably say, listen, it's up to you to talk to your son about this and say, don't touch that stuff, mate.
Well, the current government is ideologically opposed to these measures. But what we really want, we want the government to move beyond their ideology and focus on the pain and suffering that these drinks cause our kids on a day-to-day basis. I mean, my right hand is sore today from taking out so many teeth yesterday. Many people taking out teeth had been drinking these energy drinks. And a lot of them, I asked them, how many teaspoons are in these drinks? Hardly any of them can tell me the right answer.
So your arm is literally aching from pulling teeth?
It is, my right hand. I had to put some Voltaren on my hand last night because my ligament is so sore.
Oh gosh, that's pretty extreme. I think the studies out of the UK suggested that kids were sort of having 2 or 3 of these high caffeine and, you're saying sugary drinks as well a week. Is that the kind of diet that you're sort of seeing as causing problems, or are you coming across people that are nicking them way more often?
Oh, the evidence is clear here in New Zealand that the kids are consuming way too many drinks, not just sugary drinks, but also these energy drinks, which, as we know, are packed full of sugar and caffeine. And the teachers themselves are coming up to us saying, please do something about this, because our kids are bouncing off the walls after lunch, after consuming, up to 4 coffees worth of caffeine in one energy drink.
Yeah, I guess, and then you're sort of seeing the down. We do have pretty extreme level, high levels of extreme bad dental health in this country, don't we? We've got sort of quite a number of people that probably struggle to access dental care. Is that part of the problem?
It's part of the problem, but the main reason we have rotten teeth is because we consume a diet high in sugar. And the number one source of sugar in the New Zealand diet for age 0 to 30 actually comes from sugary drinks. Even these energy drink companies print on the back of their labels, they say, warning, not recommended for children, pregnant women, or breastfeeding women. So this clearly highlights that these drinks have no place in the New Zealand diet for children.
Rob Beaglehole there, a spokesperson for the New Zealand Dental Association, with some pretty sobering thoughts about how sugary our drinks are getting. Thanks very much for your time there, Rob. Right, moving up the country to Wellington, where the trial for the deadly Loafers Lodge fire has continued this week. Melissa Nightingale is a Wellington-based reporter for the New Zealand Herald. Melissa, you've been across this as it's progressed. Where are we at the moment?
Yeah, so yesterday we started to hear about the defendant's mental health history in the past 25 years leading up to these fatal fires being lit. And we've heard from a psychiatrist who has interviewed him multiple times after the fires and has given his perspective on why he doesn't believe the defendant has a defence of insanity.
Yeah, so that's, a real insight into the health history there. How did we sort of hear more about that, do you think?
Yes, so the Crown Prosecutor Stephanie Bishop started the morning by reading out an agreed statement of evidence, and that went into detail on the last 25 years of the defendant's mental health. So what we know is that he has been hospitalised now 9 times for relapses in his paranoid schizophrenia, which he's been diagnosed with. And crucially, we also know that he absconded from a mental health facility in Auckland just weeks before lighting the fire at Loafers Lodge.
So there was plenty of smoke, around this. There were definitely signs that someone needed a bit of extra care here that seems to have slipped through those cracks, right?
Yes, unfortunately he's absconded while on unescorted leave, and he had been showing signs of improvement with treatment. However, once he absconded, he stopped taking his treatment. And we know as well from Dr. Justin Barry Walsh, the psychiatrist, that after the fire, the defendant was not mentally well at all. He was refusing to take treatment and he was very difficult to communicate with. A recurring theme for him was paranoia about persecutory delusions, people spitting in his food, poisoning his food. So he was not in a good state.
We've just been seeing some pictures there while you were talking of the night of the fire. Have we heard a little bit more about that in court?
Yes, well, over the past week, we've heard a lot about the night of the fire from firefighters who have described their rescue efforts, the building falling down around them as they're trying to fight the fire, trying to escape just before a dangerous flashover happened. And we've also heard from residents of Loafers Lodge who have described waking up and discovering walls of smoke when they opened their bedroom door, trying to escape, some of them climbing onto the roof to get away. We've heard really harrowing 111 calls from some of the residents, including one who was trapped in his room for about half an hour on the phone with a dispatcher begging for help, and he was finally able to escape to the roof, thankfully.
Right, thanks very much, Melissa. We've been hearing it this morning, I think, about how tricky it is to get a trial through the courts these days. This one is one that I think everybody's very happy to see take its time and get right to the bottom. That's Melissa Nightingale from Wellington from the NZ Herald newsroom. It's 7:30, so that's time for some news with Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
Reassurance our justice system as a whole is working as some issues slip through the cracks. Chief Justice Dame Helen Wynne-Kelman has issued a stark warning in her annual report. She outlines a justice system weighed down by delays, too few judges, safety concerns and a lack of funding. New Zealand Law Society President Fraser Barton says compared to overseas, New Zealand's justice system ranks very highly.
We mustn't be complacent, that there is still a lot of work needed to make sure that we don't fall behind.
The Education Minister believes her government's initiatives are boosting interest in teaching. Newstalk ZB can reveal there's been 3,500 new domestic enrolments to initial teacher training so far this year, 30% higher than the same time last year. Erica Stanford says there's more positive talk about the profession than negative, adding she's always talking up teachers. She says people can see the amount of resource they're pumping into the front line, whether it's maths books, professional learning and development, or the new curriculum. A rift between National and ACT is emerging on Auckland Council's new density plan. It would allow more intensification near transport corridors and see parts of the city lose their special character status. David Seymour told a public meeting last week that he and supporters must impress on Housing Minister Chris Bishop that the plan is not necessary. He's concerned intensification will take place in areas without the required infrastructure, citing Parnell as an example. Bishop says the reality of the council's proposal is much less dramatic than critics claim. Nelson and Tasman mayors are banding together to push back the closure of a local sawmill. Carter Holt Harvey is expected to deliver its final decision on a proposal to shut its Eves Valley sawmill today, resulting in the loss of 142 jobs. Nelson's Nick Smith and Tasman's Tim King have written to the manufacturing company pleading with them to defer closure for 12 months. Nurses around the country are set to begin their second day of industrial action over unsafe staffing levels in less than a week. More than 36,000 nurses organisation members employed by Health NZ are repeating Tuesday's strikes and putting tools down from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. today. The National Cyber Security Centre is urging businesses to up their defences against cyber criminals. Commissioned research from the agency has found 53% of small to medium Kiwi enterprises have been exposed to a cyber threat over the last 6 months. It's a jump from only 36% reported they'd been targeted in last year's survey. Mission Enablement Director Mike Yagish says that businesses they need to be preparing for a cybersecurity attack.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Broncos coach Michael Maguire has poo-pooed fullback Reece Walsh's decision to release a social media post of him drinking from a toilet ahead of tonight's NRL League match against the Storm in Brisbane. The Cadillac Formula One team has named IndyCar's Colton Herta as their test driver for 2026. Imane Khalif has appealed World Boxing's decision which bars her from events unless she undergoes genetic sex testing. The Algerian will miss competing at the World Championships starting tonight in Liverpool as a result.
Right, you're probably sick and tired of hearing all about that parade in China. I'm fascinated. I'm particularly fascinated by the hot mic moment where Xi and Putin were sort of walking up towards the rostrum there, and the commentators were saying, oh, they're probably having some light-hearted banter and good chat and the rest of it. Well, it turns out they were talking about organ transplants and how you might be able to live to 150 if you can get your hands on the right technology, which is either cool or creepy, maybe a little bit of both. Fascinating, but slightly chilling coming from two big world leaders like that. Think about that as you head into the weather with John.
Herald NOW weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora, good morning. Some wetter, windier weather moving up the western coast of the South Island today. Some heavy spells of rain and some thunderstorms. We'll find rain moving in towards Southland and Otago, but for dry weather, head towards the North Island and some pretty warm temperatures on the likes of the Hawke's Bay coast. We'll start off though down south with that wet weather moving northwards. Heavy spells of rain through Fiordland, some thunderstorms, patchy rain moving northwards through Southland and Otago through the daytime. For Canterbury, most of the time it's dry, bit of high cloud here and there, but not a bad looking story. The wetter weather on that western side though, again that risk of thunderstorms and hail moving up through Westland. For the lower parts of the North Island, dry and generally clear through Wairarapa, but the other side of the hills cloudier with an odd shower springing up as we head through the daytime. For some of the warmer temperatures, head to Hawke's Bay, 20 degrees Celsius in Napier, fine dry through the daytime, but a patchy cloud through the likes of the Bay of Plenty and Waitomo. Most of the time, I think it will stay dry. We could find an odd shower just run through the likes of Auckland and Northland, but very few and far between. Friday sees that wetter, windier weather moving up the country. There's already some severe weather watches in place for the likes of the Canterbury High Country and that western coast. Keep an eye on the latest watches and warnings, but it is more of an unsettled day for Friday.
Right, a little bit of feedback here from Jennifer. Thanks for getting in touch, Jennifer. You like what we're doing, and we like that you like it. But you were watching the parade. It had you gobsmacked. Good word. Not because of all the weapons and all that kind of stuff that we've been talking about, but just because of the way everyone was all synchronised and, you know, the singing and the marching and all that kind of stuff. And I guess making the point that, you know, you can go on about the top blokes and all their hardware, but the power and might, nothing quite like the work of people getting together. Fair enough, Jennifer, I reckon. Thanks very much for your thoughts. Now, look, if you've got anything to say about topics like Jennifer has, just do get in touch. Flick us an email, heraldnow@nzherald.co.nz. We'd love to hear your thoughts about the China Parade, our place in the New World Order, what we should be doing all about it. That's heraldnow@nzherald.co.nz. We'd love to hear your feedback. Right, time now to talk business with our partners 2 Degrees. Butter prices are coming down. Wait for it. And new rules are going to cut red tape for food exporters. Riley Kennedy joins me from Business Desk, agricultural superstar. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Garth.
No ni hao?
No.
You've actually spent a bit of time, haven't you, up and down to China, looking at a lot of our big exporters. So you kind of know a bit about the market there.
Yeah, China's a fascinating place. Last night when I couldn't sleep, I was up watching TikToks of the parade. But China, I've been to Shanghai twice in the past 6 months. It's just a fascinating place.
Yeah, right. Butter prices, they're on the way down.
Yeah, consumers rejoice. At yesterday's global dairy trade auction, the butter price fell 2.5% to about $7,000 a tonne. If you cast your mind back a month or two ago, you couldn't go a day without a headline about butter prices. Quite bizarrely, the finance minister called Miles Hurrell, the Fonterra boss, down for a please explain. It didn't go particularly well.
No, we saw that all over the place, didn't we?
Yeah, so... But that $7,000 a tonne mark, that's like that's down about $1,000 off its peak. Right. So at every auction since about May, the butter price has actually fallen. I spoke to one analyst yesterday, and they said it's probably got about $1,000 a tonne to go, so it'll probably fall another.
Right.
Yeah.
There's momentum downwards.
Interestingly, actually, speaking of China, yesterday's auction, 80% of the butter sold on the platform went to China. It was their largest ever purchase of butter.
Wow.
Off the platform. But the reason for that is, well, the reason the butter price is going down is there's just a whole lot of cheap butter around at the moment.
Can we get some?
No. But the Europeans, there's a lot of cheap butter coming out of there. Yeah. Their butter price is down like 15% in the past month. The US is fallen as well, so that just naturally will drag our butter price down as well.
So we're not going to see like the COVID queues with people hoarding toilet paper and taking it on the plane. We're not going to see people coming back from their summer holiday in Europe with a case of butter or something from Sainsbury's.
I would say that European butter's not as good as ours, but I also wouldn't be running out to Woolworths and trying to get your cheap butter just yet.
Yeah, so it's a wee bit like petrol prices and oil prices. It takes a while for it to
take a while to flow through.
But it could be coming.
Could be.
In time for Christmas, when we're told we should all eat loads more anyway. Look, speaking of food, there's been an announcement about food labelling rules. Who's this for the benefit of? What's happening here?
Yeah, so from the end of September 25th or something, the food exporters, they won't need to apply for an exemption of New Zealand standards for a country they're importing into.
Right.
Which is...
So this is if you're making something, a food product, and you're shipping it overseas, say to, I don't know, to China, for example, you've got to comply with all their rules about what's on the packet, haven't you?
Yes.
But you've also got to comply with New Zealand's?
Yeah, well, that would be the case. So
even if it's not going to be on the shelves here?
Yes, and then you had to apply for an exemption product by product. So it seemed slightly odd.
I guess they're trying to sort of protect anything that comes from here so that it meets our standards as well as theirs, but it seems like a lot of faff.
Yeah, so now you just don't have to.
Oh, good.
And the exporters think this is great. Dairy companies said, this is excellent, we can actually go and, I think their words were, make it easier to create new high-value products without, having to... You had to gazette it. It was very odd.
That sounds very old-fashioned.
So the Food Safety Minister, Andrew Hoggard, has sent his officials away to work on the dietary supplements.
Because they're not covered, anything with a therapeutic claim or any of that kind of stuff. It's a wee bit trickier because you want to make sure that, I guess the worst case is you send something and it turns up in the market in China and it's no good, and everybody from all New Zealand product gets blamed unfairly as a result. We've sort of seen stuff like that happen before, haven't we? Yeah. Now look, just before we go, there's a wee bit of trouble on the market there for one takeover of a company, Vital.
Vital, yeah. So it's vitally important the shareholders engage in this. So this is quite interesting. Vital's quite small on the NZX, but it's been taken over by Tate, which is like a critical communications provider.
They're doing like the emergency radio for the police and the ambulance
and
kind of thing.
Stuff. Yeah, so they're trying to take over Vital, but for the offer to go through, it's got to have 90% acceptance. It's currently only got about 69%. It's got to get to 90. ACC is holding out. They won't say whether they're going to accept or not. But there is also a potential, there's quite a few shareholders that just aren't engaged. They either just don't know whether they're a shareholder, just forgotten about their shares in Vital. It is very small, so it's probably quite easy to do. But the ghost holders, as they're called, might tip it over? Yeah, might tip it over.
Right.
So you might want to check if you're a Vital shareholder.
All right, thanks very much, Riley Kennedy. That's Riley Kennedy from Business Desk, and we talk business every day thanks to our partners, 2 Degrees. Right, heading down the country, the trial for a high-profile sportsman accused of causing 13 rib fractures to an infant continues at the Dunedin District Court. For the latest on the case, I'm joined by New Zealand Herald's Dunedin-based reporter, Ben Thomaset. Ben, take us through it.
Yoda.
Thomaset, sorry.
So the Crown's experts, including specialists from Starship and local paediatricians, say the infant's rib fractures are consistent with significant force and can't be explained by underlying conditions. On the other hand, the defence experts, like US-based radiologist Dr. Julie Mack, who we heard from yesterday, have argued the same injuries could result from minor trauma or routine handling, and that medical factors like bone fragility or vitamin deficiencies should not or could not be ruled out. It's essentially a clash of medical opinions between the Crown saying this is clear trauma and the defence saying there are other possible explanations.
Yeah. So how important, I suppose, then, is that kind of clinical testimony from experts like Mac?
So that testimony is quite significant because she has directly challenged the Crown's interpretation of the medical facts. She said swelling on the scans around the infant's rib cage does not prove abuse, and that fractures can sometimes only appear later on imaging. She's essentially added weight to the defence argument that the medical picture isn't as straightforward as the Crown have laid out or alleged.
I guess, that must be asking quite a lot of the jury to sort of get their heads around some pretty complex medical testimony, and it's quite a stretch for them, I'd imagine. What have we heard, though, from the baby's mother, I suppose, and others who are close to the accused?
So we have heard quite emotional testimony from the infant's mother, friends, family, neighbours of the accused. They've all strongly denied that the accused could have been responsible for the injuries. Several have described, including the mother, have described feeling unheard by the medical community. And in court, there have been several visible moments of distress as the defence has laid the evidence out.
Wow.
their accounts have absolutely reinforced the defence's case, but ultimately it's, like I said, that real clash of medical opinion versus medical opinion.
Yeah. So you're back in court to hear, I imagine, a bit more of that. What are we expecting to hear next?
That's right. Today is expected to be the final day. We're going to hear from two more defence witnesses, and we should be getting to the closing statements by the end of today, and then it will be in the jury's court.
Well, we'll stand by to hear more from you, Ben, on that. Ben Thomsett from the New Zealand Herald's newsroom in Dunedin. Thank you very much. Look, coming up after the 8 o'clock news, we've got artificial intelligence. That's how it's already helping with surgery in New Zealand. And we're going to be talking to Wellington surgeon James Leong. He'll explain to us how. But next, remember the name Sios. This is a Tauranga tech company that's going places in a hurry. We're behind the scenes next.
Speaking to the acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all? You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university. My message to the union is very clear. Don't use...
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GGs because they're good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
After 20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Kaiwaka's been in the game for 200 seasons. 50 years of facing up to the elements, getting the job done and coming back for more. And that's guaranteed for a lifetime. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
Of course we can set up the new smart TV for you. We could also put it on the wall for you too.
Want to keep your family safe online? We've got tips for that.
Yeah, I can show you how to use the AI on your laptop.
Teaching the kids to do laundry? These washing machines auto-dispense the perfect amount of detergent, making it super easy to learn.
Wait, what's a Ninja Creamy?
Got tech questions? We've got answers. With 66 stores nationwide, your tech experts ready to help.
Right, important holiday update here. You'll remember our competition to win a trip to Japan thanks to the New Zealand Herald and Inspiring Vacations. Well, I'll be surprising the lucky winner live on air tomorrow morning. This is a once-in-a-lifetime prize that includes return flights, accommodation, guided tours for 2, and it's valued at over 14 grand. So if you were one of the thousands who entered, make sure you're watching tomorrow morning when I announce the lucky winner. Maybe they'll take me along. A Tauranga-based tech company, Sios, wants to be the next rocket lab, and they're actually well on the way. Sios has just signed a $60 million deal to sell drones to the British government, and now it's tripling its staff. Herald's business reporter and technology editor Chris Keel went behind the scenes at Sios.
This is an interceptor drone. This is a fully autonomous payload truck. This is not eastern Ukraine, it's Mount Maunganui, and these are getting built now, today. Sios Aerospace is the business and it is expanding rapidly with government contracts. CEO founder Samuel Vai says, "We've put all the pieces of the puzzle together to allow Sios to ultimately become the next Rocket Lab sized company." I spoke to Sam in his Mount Maunganui warehouse.
Our initial contract actually was with the Royal Navy, where we were able to do a trial of our SA-200 helicopter. And that was actually the first little contract we had, it was a year and a half ago, we won that. But directly off the back of that, the Sios's reputation came through as a company that delivers. So in we go. So in here we have the All of the smaller drone systems that we're doing, from interceptor drones to quadcopters. We even see a lot of the old target drones that we've destroyed previously. So here's a victim of our interceptor. SIAS has really rapidly grown over the last 18 months from half a dozen people through to now we have just over 110 people across multiple countries. Obviously Europe, we've got a New Zealand base here. Here in Mount Maunganui is obviously the SIAS headquarters. It's the predominant R&D site as well. But we are now establishing a production site before the end of this year in Mount Maunganui. This is the SA1. We do all the naming conventions based on number, designates kind of the size. So SA200 carries 200 kilos, it's big. SA1, small.
Do you think the NZDF is a bit behind the play with drones and uncrewed vehicles?
So definitely NZDF, they've got their eyes out to what's happening around the world, the geopolitical situation, how drones are being used in Ukraine. So actually through the DCP, NZDF is rapidly accelerating their review, their test and evaluation, and as well as acquisition of drone systems. We are actively in discussions with NZDF around a multitude of their requirements as well. But bear in mind, New Zealand is a different domain, sort of geographical context than what is in Ukraine. Obviously, we're not at war, but we also do have a huge EEZ, a huge amount of maritime environment to look after. Ignoring the sort of economic development that would be beneficial to going with a New Zealand supplier, there's really two things that I think come to my mind for what NZDF would be looking at. Firstly is picking products, equipment, tools that can adequately do the job that they need for the budget. And the second thing is just considering supply chain risk. Not just where the vehicle is produced, but that system, subsystem and component supply chain through all the way upstream. Because if suddenly a vehicle required one specific exquisite component that came from a country that suddenly shut its export of that component, you wouldn't be able to produce that vehicle. So NZDF are being smart around thinking, okay, we need to ensure that the systems that we're getting have that supply chain resilience, but it's a balance between that and cost as well.
And what's the top speed and range?
For the ground vehicle will go over 200 kilometres in terms of its endurance range. And top speed, it will do over 100 kilometres an hour. So it's a bit of a mean machine.
What are your plans for expansion here in Mount Maunganui?
So we're going to add a lot of jobs, to our site here in Mount Maunganui. It is linked to how many procurement contracts do come through from New Zealand as well as the APAC, Asian Pacific region. But certainly, look, we'll be tripling our workforce here over the next 12 months.
Well, you want to keep your eyes on them. And an apology from me, I think I said they're based in Tauranga. Clearly, it's Mount Maunganui. You want to be very clear about that. Right, coming up, the All Blacks team to take on the Springboks is being named at lunchtime, and our sports panel will have their picks on who's in and who's out next. Then, if you've got $5 million to spend on a house, well, we've got the man to help you. Property with GJ Gardner Homes is up after 8:30.
Maximising productivity, what have you got?
Well, if we switch to 2 degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans, and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then. Mm-hmm.
Ready?
One Roof Property. Love where you live.
In 1985, my grandfather set out to make the world a better tea. That's why we grow our own, unlike other tea companies. Then pick the best leaves by hand, not machine, and pack it right here in Sri Lanka. But it's not just the taste that makes our tea better. 15% of our profit goes to humanity and to the elephants. As my grandfather said,
do try it.
You Do It delivers high-quality New Zealand-made flat-pack DIY kitchen cabinetry. With flexible widths at your fingertips, it makes designing easy. All at an affordable price because you order online and cut out the middleman. You can even upgrade your dream kitchen with You Do It stylish and clever options, like choosing wall cabinets with overhanging doors, or select from a range of pull-out storage solutions. Add premium soft-close drawers and ask to stretch the height, width or depth of your cabinets. Upgrade your kitchen today and head to newsroom.co.nz.
I know we've had like nurses' strikes and we've also had teachers' strikes, but there has been, it looks like some people are still keen on a career in education. There's been a 30% jump in enrolments for teachers, 3,500 students this year compared with about 2,750 last year. On ZB this morning, Mike Hosking spoke with Massey University Professor of Teaching Education, John O'Neill. And he started off by asking for his reaction to the numbers.
Well, it's certainly a turnaround, isn't it? So it's good news, and the challenge, I suppose, is to find out what are the causes. Why is it happening?
Have you got any ideas? What suddenly, it can't just be Erica Stanford and putting walls up in a classroom, can it?
No, of course it can't. It's partly cyclical. So every time there's a recession or an economic downturn, numbers in ITE and other training programs tend to go up. So that's part of it. The challenge for government is really that we're in the middle of a sort of 10-year growth cycle in school roles. So Ministry's forecasting says that by 2030 there'll be an extra 100,000 students in schools. So even though the numbers are up, there's an ongoing challenge to keep them in the system. And we've also got an ageing teacher workforce. The subsidy for school-based placement is certainly helping, but it's a tiny fraction. So 20,000 subsidy, get people into the classroom early on, have school-based teacher training. That seems to be a real incentive for people to take part and for schools to host students, but it's a tiny fraction of the overall numbers. So money could be an issue going forward. So there's other things as well.
Does the split interest you 31, 28, 24? It's reasonably even across the sector.
Yeah, the thing I was surprised about was early childhood numbers up to the extent that they are, particularly in light of changes made by Minister Seymour in terms of starting salaries and deregulation and changing the ratios. So we know we've already got a challenge in getting people into early childhood education. So it was a real surprise for me to see those numbers holding up in the same way that primary and secondary were.
It's John O'Neill, Massey University Professor of Teaching Education, speaking on the Mike Hosking breakfast just a short time ago. Right, time now for a sports panel. And joining me here in the studio, Cam McMillan, who is the Herald's Deputy Sports Editor, and Chris Reeve, who is the sports reporter. Gentlemen.
Good morning. Hello.
Hi, we have a test ahead.
Yeah.
And we have a team naming.
Yeah, All Blacks will be named around about midday this morning. I think we're going to expect not many changes. Interesting, coming off a loss to Argentina. The big talking point obviously has been at halfback. There's been injuries. We'll probably see Finlay Christie start at 9, and there's been injury concern for Kyle Preston during the week, but I think he'll probably be on the bench. And the thing with Finlay Christie, like he played meaningful minutes in the Rugby World Cup final against South Africa, so he's got experience. You know, he was trusted to play the last 20 minutes and to replace Aaron Smith in a final. So I think he'll be fine in a big occasion like this.
You're nodding in agreement down there in the air?
Yes, Finlay Christie's the experienced option. He's been known for his sort of defensive capabilities throughout his career, and I think just a solid guy like that is probably who they're going to look to in a big test like this, when the other, well, sort of healthy option is Kyle Preston, who hasn't played a test yet.
Right, and so that's where you think at halfback you're going to be looking to see what the change is or what's confirmed there. Nothing else really, no other shake-ups expected?
Well, the other thing is in the loose forwards. Simon Parker he played a very good game on debut in that defeat to the Argentina, and whether they're going to go with him or Duplessis Karifi. I think Wallace Satiti probably will start as well. So it's just how they're going to make in the loose forwards. But yeah, outside of that, and whether Lester Whainuku will come in, they've named him in the training. He's there, so that he should be available for the team. And I think they should give him a go.
Yeah, have we been getting much report from training from what you've been seeing?
I think they're going hard. Obviously, this is a big test for them, and usually they work a lot on the back of a loss as well. And yeah, this is the big test of the year. So yeah, it's been a lot of hard work, and we're going to expect another brutal test, as usually are against the Springboks.
Have you seen anything that gives you confidence for a win?
In the last few weeks, no. No, they just got to keep holding the ball. That's the main thing, and tackling. They missed too many tackles against Argentina. So I imagine they would have been spent a lot of time on the tackle bags as well these last few weeks. And they shore up those mistakes. I think, yeah, that's the only thing. But I haven't seen in the last 2 weeks, not against Argentina, no.
Yeah, no. Chris, we go on a lot about the Eden Park record. Are we making too much of this? Are we bigging it up a bit too much, or is it a real thing?
It's a pretty good record, 50 matches unbeaten, and it goes back to 1994. Most of those tests have been against the Wallabies, who in sort of recent years haven't been the greatest edition of the Wallabies, but you still got to win the tests. So, for me, it's a pretty solid record.
Do you think it has a wee bit of an impact psychologically on the team that turns up? And who they're playing?
Yeah, you come in against a team at their, we call it the fortress, right? Like they haven't lost since 1994. That's got to be a psychological edge for the team at home. Although I suppose you don't want to be the one to lose that, do you?
Yeah. Now, look, just code switching here quickly. We're looking at the Wars playing Manly at the weekend. Manly at Manly?
Yeah, tough. Daly Cherry Evans' last game for Manly as well. They won't make the top 8, so they'll be out after this week. The Warriors can still make the top 4. They need to win this one and have the Broncos and Sharks both lose. The Broncos play tonight. The Sharks play after the Warriors, I believe. They both got pretty tough games too. The Broncos play the Storm, who are second, and the Sharks play the Bulldogs, who are third. So, they're losable games, but the Warriors do have to get the job done.
Yeah, that's a lot of obstructions to run through to get to that result. Thanks very much, gentlemen. We'll be catching you later. I suppose you'll be online with more on the team at midday and in print tomorrow.
We have a live blog. We'll be kicking off at 11, so check on that, and we have a team at midday.
Get amongst it. There you go. Don't let it affect your productivity at work, everybody. just keep an eye on what's going on. Thanks very much, Cam and Chris, there from the Herald sports team. Right, it's 8:01. We better get to the news with Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
Reassurance our justice system as a whole is working as some issues slip through the cracks. Chief Justice Dame Helen Wynne-Kelman has issued a stark warning in her annual report. She outlines a justice system weighed down by delays, too few judges, safety concerns and a lack of funding. New Zealand Law Society President Fraser Barton says compared to overseas, New Zealand's justice system ranks very highly.
We mustn't be complacent, that there is still a lot of work needed to make sure that we don't fall behind.
The Education Minister believes her government's initiatives are boosting interest in teaching. Newstalk ZB can reveal there's been 3,500 new domestic enrolments to initial teacher training so far this year, 30% higher than the same time last year. Erica Stanford says there's more positive talk about the profession than negative, adding she's always talking up teachers. She says people can see the amount of resource they're pumping into the front line, whether it's maths books, professional learning and development, or the new curriculum. A rift between National and ACT is emerging on Auckland Council's new density plan. It would allow more intensification near transport corridors and see parts of the city lose their special character status. David Seymour told a public meeting last week that he and supporters must impress on Housing Minister Chris Bishop that the plan is not necessary. He's concerned intensification will take place in areas without the required infrastructure, citing Parnell as an example. Bishop says the reality of the council's proposal is much less dramatic than critics claim. Nelson and Tasman mayors are banding together to push back the closure of a local sawmill. Carter Holt Harvey is expected to deliver its final decision on a proposal to shut its Eves Valley sawmill today, resulting in the loss of 142 jobs. Nelson's Nick Smith and Tasman's Tim King have written to the manufacturing company pleading with them to defer closure for 12 months. Nurses around the country are set to begin their second day of industrial action over unsafe staffing levels in less than a week. More than 36,000 nurses organisation members employed by Health NZ are repeating Tuesday's strikes and putting tools down from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. today. The National Cyber Security Centre is urging businesses to up their defences against cyber criminals. Commissioned research from the agency has found 53% of small to medium Kiwi enterprises have been exposed to a cyber threat over the last 6 months. It's a jump from only 36% reported they'd been targeted in last year's survey. Mission Enablement Director Mike Yagish says that businesses they need to be preparing for a cyber security attack.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Broncos coach Michael Maguire has poo-pooed fullback Reece Walsh's decision to release a social media post of him drinking from a toilet ahead of tonight's NRL League match against the Storm in Brisbane. The Cadillac Formula One team has named IndyCar's Colton Herta as their test driver for 2026. Imane Khalif has appealed World Boxing's decision which bars her from events unless she undergoes genetic sex testing. The Algerian will miss competing at the World Championships starting tonight in Liverpool as a result.
Oh, you've got to wonder if that player's asked for a day in lieu. Look, Kate, take a look at this now. Lovely little something we found you from the international wires. Skiathos Airport in Greece. It's a popular place for plane spotters because you can get very close to the end of the runway. And there are warning signs, but a lot of people don't pay attention, like this one family who got caught on camera earlier today being propelled into the sea. Well, see what happens next. You don't leap in to save them at all. Just, make sure that you get the video first, obviously. Much happier if they can post it rather than sort of recover the crocs. You can always get another couple of crocs, can't you, at the resort. Always read the warning signs, folks, and pay attention. They mean what they say. Right, weather now with John.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora, good morning. Some wetter, windier weather moving up the western coast of the South Island today. Some heavy spells of rain and some thunderstorms. We'll find rain moving in towards Southland and Otago, but for dry weather, head towards the North Island and some pretty warm temperatures on the likes of the Hawke's Bay coast. We'll start off though down south with that wet weather moving northwards. Heavy spells of rain through Fiordland, some thunderstorms, patchy rain moving northwards through Southland and Otago through the daytime. For Canterbury, most of the time it's dry, bit of high cloud here and there, but not a bad looking story. The wetter weather on that western side though, again that risk of thunderstorms and hail moving up through Westland. For the lower parts of the North Island, dry and generally clear through Wairarapa, but the other side of the hills cloudier with an odd shower springing up as we head through the daytime. For some of the warmer temperatures, head to Hawke's Bay, 20 degrees Celsius in Napier, fine dry through the daytime, but a patchy cloud through the likes of the Bay of Plenty and Waitomo. Most of the time, I think it will stay dry. We could find an odd shower just run through the likes of Auckland and Northland, but very few and far between. Friday sees that wetter, windier weather moving up the country. There's already some severe weather watches in place for the likes of the Canterbury High Country and that western coast. Keep an eye on the latest watches and warnings, but it is more of an unsettled day for Friday.
Right, here's a question for you. Would you trust AI with your healthcare? Specialists are calling for New Zealand to accelerate the uptake of AI tools for the likes of note-taking and referrals and things like that to relieve pressure on the medical system. Well, the doctor will see us now. Dr. James Leong is a Wellington-based ophthalmologist on the line. Good morning, sir.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Look, I'm just wondering, can you tell us what your thoughts are on using AI in your practice?
Sure. So by AI here, just to clarify, I'm talking about large language models, similar to ChatGPT, which is what a lot of people have come across. And so I use it as a scribe in my clinic. It runs in the background. I ask permission from the patients, and it records our conversation. So I get to run the consultation like I normally would, talking directly to the patient, and I'm not having to type to make notes as I go along, because the AI will take the recording and produce the notes for me at the end, and all the rest of that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, I'm in control, so I have to review the notes and make sure that it's accurate, the letters are accurate. So there's still a human element to it.
So, okay, so you're checking to make sure it's working, but I mean, what if you've got a very, very busy day? How quickly are you checking it? You know, is it actually, I guess, trustworthy and foolproof is the first question you'd want to ask.
That is definitely a concern, because large language models as a whole are prone to hallucinations, as many know. What the particular tool that I'm using, it does have quite good controls, but I will occasionally catch it producing something that I don't agree with. So yes, it still takes a little bit of time. There's still, like, as I say, still the human is in control of it. It's only a tool, and you can't rely. You still have to make the diagnosis. You still have to talk to the patient about the options for treatment. So yeah, as far as I see it, it's beneficial, because the old way of doing it is I'm typing away or I'm writing as I'm talking to the patient. But this way, I can, the patient has my full attention.
So that was my next question, really, was how did you used to do it? Really, what you're telling me is that, like we're talking now, we can give each other our full attention and something's in the background making all the technology work for you so that the loose ends get tied up. Trust is really important, though, in these relationships. Have you found people wary about this, or do they mostly just go along with whatever you're putting forward because you've put your trust in it?
I've had one person push back on it, and I work in Wellington, so I had someone who works in the regulatory space, and this patient had concerns around the use of these large AI companies and how they use this data to train their models. But the provider that I'm using, they basically have an assurance that none of the data that is generated in the course of the use of it in a healthcare setting, that none of this data is being A, retained, and B, it's not being used to train the system further. But yeah, of course, like anybody on the street, I do have my concerns.
Sure. I mean, I guess it's good you've done the homework to check where it's winding up. That is a worry. You wouldn't want that information, your private information, necessarily showing up on someone else's system, whether it's being used to train something or not. I guess we might get to the point where people don't trust a health professional unless they've got that backup. But I just sort of wonder, I mean, there must be other systems that you can be using to try and help your practice. You sound like you've already got this one pretty well bedded in. Where else are you looking next?
So it's a model that's already in use in the US, for example. The use of human scribes, so staff members, members of the team who are trained to actually be in the consultation and generate the notes. But that is a very, as you can imagine, that's a very expensive model of practice, but also it too has its own privacy implications, because you have someone else in the room during the consultation. But here in New Zealand, it's not common for anyone to use human scribes. But I suppose if we get to the point that AI doesn't end up being a thing, we can always fall back on good old human intelligence.
Yeah, okay, well that's a comfort to learn there. Dr. James Leong, Wellington-based ophthalmologist, with some really useful insights, I think, in how AI is perhaps helping things move a little bit more quickly through the practice. Thanks very much for your time this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Right, it's 8:13 now. It's time to get back to what we were chatting out with our sports panel earlier, the great Springbok rivalry. The All Blacks versus the Springboks is probably rugby's greatest rivalry. We certainly like to think so in this country. We've been playing each other since 1921, and it's all on again this Saturday night. The Herald's Winston Aldworth has gone back through all the tests and ranked them from worst to best. And unbelievably, it hasn't crushed him, the weight of all of that research. And he joins me here now on set this morning. Winston Aldworth, Herald Sports Editor. take it away. Tell us what on earth possessed you to look back all of this in the first place.
Good morning, Garth. I think it did crush me a bit, actually. So there've been 108 tests, and this between the two sides. This piece actually started out as a ranking of the top 10 games. I started doing it last year and just got a bit distracted, and it sort of blew out. Once you do 10, you think, well, why not do 20? Then once you've done 20, you just go the whole hog.
Where does it end? And you weren't using AI?
No, but I was just watching that. Perhaps I should have, I think. The truth is too that of the 100, the reason you end up ranking all of them rather than a few of them is they are just all doozies. Like, they're just never not interesting when the All Blacks play the Springboks. You've either got the brutal collision thing that rugby gives sports fans, or you've got high stakes, excellent, dazzling footy, or you've got off-field drama. You've got geopolitical intrigue, you've got aircraft buzzing the stadiums. It's just, it's somehow bigger than just what a footy game normally gives you. And it goes to, I think there's something about that period in the 80s when the Springboks weren't around, and they became sort of mythic characters for New Zealand footy fans. World Cups arrived, professional rugby was, shortly in the pipeline going to come through, but always in the background there was this looming spectre of the Springboks, and they would come back and destroy us, and they were all,
There was that aspect that we all thought the second they turned up we'd get a mess of hiding.
My dad told me they were all 10 foot tall and built of concrete, and he was just about right. Turned out they came back and they were a little bit off the pace, but they were pretty quick to get back on pace. Yeah. And obviously they've got the wood over us at World Cups.
Yeah.
We need to sort of flip that one around. A lot of fans will say that, the All Blacks having won the first World Cup, we've won one away, we were the first to win back-to-backs. But until we beat the Boks in a final, you could argue that
that's the last trophy on the shelf.
That's the big
if you
one.
Like.
That's the big one still sitting there.
Yeah. You mentioned some of that off-field drama. That's underscoring it almost, really, or understating it almost. It's been a lens through which we looked at world affairs at various points in time, right?
Yeah, there was a sort of awakening of the, yes, we're a little nation and we're pretty unimportant in the grand scheme of things, but when the wrongs of the apartheid regime were playing out on the streets of Sandringham, it sort of brings it home that our voices do matter, and sport really mattered at that time and still now.
Oh, I think I'm pretty sure Mandela talked in one of his books about listening to the crowds coming from Hamilton and hearing the Amandla chant, and that sort of revved him up when he was locked up on Robben Island. So it's a sort of it's louder than a crowd.
Didn't stop him from cheering for the wrong team in '95.
Well, you can't blame him for that, though, can you? I mean, I think
fair play.
Trying to get a bit of national unity going.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want you to pick your top game.
Sure.
I want you to pick one that you stumbled across in this epic work that you thought, crikey, that was a good one.
Well, there were some doozies. There was one that was a terrible one, which you'll find very high in the article. They played in, I think the third or fourth time they played was in Wellington in 1921. It was 0-0. And it was 10 degrees.
So classic, beautiful game.
10 degrees Celsius. People sometimes think that rugby's become a bit lightweight and they throw the ball around too much. But I think we're pretty lucky today.
We've been in 2 inches of mud, I'm sure.
Yeah, think of that when you're sitting on your sofa on Saturday night. Yeah. So that's a doozy. But there's everything out of 56. The 56 series really, and there's some great work by authors like Warwick Roger, Kiwi. Journalist wrote about that series and what it meant for the New Zealand psyche. So that's a biggie. I think one outlier in there. There's this when John Mitchell first came in, they played some really good footy, and we put 50 odd over them on a sunny day at Ellis Park. So yeah, also big fan of how Lima Sopoaga went on debut. So
wow, okay, that was a cornucopia. Winston Aldworth, that's about 13,000 words worth of effort that I need to sort of dive into at some point over the weekend.
Enjoy it.
You'll be keeping an eye on the latest chapter of that, I'm sure. Winston Aldworth, Herald Sports Editor, thanks very much. Right. After 8:30, overseas buyers can now buy homes here that are valued over $5 million. So where are these super expensive houses? The head of research at Bailey's will show us. But next we have our panel with Dave Leteli and Sarah Henry to talk us through the big stories of the day.
Sing your heart out to Coast's feel-good 80s hits. Kenny Loggins. Whitney. John Farnham. Eurythmics. Bonnie Tyler. Eric Carmen. The most 80s are on Coast. Sing your heart out. Coast.
Of course we can set up the new smart TV for you. We could also put it on the wall for you too.
Want to keep your family safe online? We've got tips for that.
Yeah, I can show you how to use the AI on your laptop.
Teaching the kids to do laundry? These washing machines auto-dispense the perfect amount of detergent, making it super easy to learn.
Wait, what's a Ninja Creamy?
Got tech questions? We've got answers. With 66 stores nationwide, your tech experts ready to help.
Seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience, just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
We've done few subdivisions with GJ Gardner, and from the resource consent to the building consent, getting the council permits and stuff, always GJ Gardners are ahead and helping us out through the whole process, and it was so easy working with GJ.
Luke Combs, Morgan Wallen, Kaylee Bell, Jelly Roll, Megan Moroney, Chris Stapleton. All the country stars have come to play on the all-new iHeart Country NZ. Your new home for country is iHeart Country NZ.
Right, it's 8:20, time to dive into the stories of the day with our panel. Sarah Henry is here. She is the editorial director of R Media, and Dave Leteli, the founder of BBM Motivation. So, what sort of motivation, Dave, did you get yesterday watching Xi Jinping and his friends tromping across Beijing with a massive display of military might?
Yeah, it's like the analogy. You know, remember Crocodile Dundee?
Yeah.
When the knife got pulled out, and he goes, "That's not a knife. This is a knife." You know, Putin went over there. Trump had all these planes flying over, so Putin's gone to his mates and said, "This is a knife." Yeah. It reminds me of peacocks when they're trying to intimidate. They got these 3 peacocks and they're walking around with their feathers out. You're saying, like, "We're taking over." You know, that's what it was about.
Or at least don't mess with us.
Yeah, that's it. Don't mess with us. Don't even think about it.
Yeah. Was that the pick you got?
The peacock, that was all I could think about, was like, here are all the big boys in these clubs showing off their toys. And, you know, I really felt for the people involved in that. I mean, logistically, amazing, right? Whoever pulled that together is probably rocking in a corner before it happened, you know, making sure nothing was going to go wrong. But just to pull that spectacle together, A1, but what a show of might, right? That is so loaded in terms of what we're actually trying to achieve.
And that's all it is. It's just a show of might. Yeah. They're just in competition. They're just showing America and the rest of NATO that
don't screw with us.
Yeah, I guess that's what we're seeing. But I was chatting to someone last night, an analyst, who was saying, look, actually, he's had a wee bit of trouble. You know, things have been a bit, off the boil, economically speaking, for China. And they love the army over there. They're really big fans. You know, anytime there's an earthquake or a landslide or something, that's who turns up to fix you. So he kind of had to put on a big show for them, is maybe how they're seeing it.
But did you watch the crowd with their little flags? They were all sort of shaking them in unison. I mean, there was no joy there. I wouldn't use that word, like a celebration or a joy or that we would associate with a parade, right?
Behind the camera going, shake the flags! Now, action!
I mean, maybe that's a very, cliched view from an outsider looking in, but I was just like, no, that
I was watching some of those close-ups, and you think, it's not like your kiss cam or whatever. It's all been fairly orchestrated, and that person at that moment is going, if I bottle this, my family will never be heard of again.
But, my wife's gone to China last year. My friend just went there earlier this year. It's when you go there, it's like they got all over us.
Hey.
It's an amazing place.
Yeah,
very organised. It's really well run.
Yep. I mean, that parade is a classic example of the efficiency and the structure and bringing massive projects together.
Yeah, probably good word then. We had Helen Clark and John Key up there, sort of shaking hands and representing in some respects.
Well, you got to play the game. That's all it's about. You got to play the game.
You got to play the game. Hey, look, the teacher enrolments are up. We've heard that this morning. Would you ever consider a career in teaching?
I would be a terrible teacher. I don't think the children would want me to be a teacher. I'd be really interested to see the enrolments this time next year because I think a lot of people were very surprised that the average teacher in New Zealand is earning $100,000, and I think the motivation for that is in the enrolments. Let's look at them next year.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you carry on.
Yeah. Well, whenever there's an economic downturn, there's a massive increase in these things. What the government needs to do is make sure these people stay in it.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's like then they realise, oh, wait on, this is actually really hard, and I'm not going to get paid very much. You know, so that's really the goal has to be to keep them in the job.
Yeah. Oh well, maybe they'll all start using AI, like the doctor that we were chatting to before. I don't know. I hear a lot of heat though about teachers using AI. And using them to sort of mark the work and all that kind of stuff. We were chatting earlier to a doctor who uses, when he's doing the consultation, he uses like an AI scribe system to keep track of what you're saying, and then he can go away and sort of check the notes afterwards and so on. I mean, if you're sitting in there, is that cool or creepy?
My doctor says that at the start of every consultation, is it okay if I use AI to transcribe the notes? I give my permission for that. And then they get sent to me within 10 minutes of that appointment finishing. A lot
longer than it took to get the appointment, I'm sure.
Oh, look, you just about have to sell a kidney to get a GP appointment. I just had that experience last week. So I don't have an issue with that because if note taking is not necessarily very accurate either. So if it's an accuracy call there, speed, efficiency, again, great.
Yeah, there's levels to it. There's levels to AI. You got to be very careful. I've said this to Ryan before when a MC must have used ChatGPT for my intro, but he was on the free version. And it said, Dave Latelli, founder of Big Black Motivation. You got to make sure they're using they're not using the free one. It's got to be the paid version. There is a big difference.
Fact check.
Big difference.
Yeah, especially if you. Well, look, stay with us. Stay with that thought anyway. We'll take a little break there. We'll be back with our panel in a moment.
Are you considering a DIY kitchen but just not sure if you can do it? Well, it's not as hard as you think. With You Do It DIY Kitchens, you're in safe hands. And the customer support team really know their stuff. After all, they design and manufacture everything here in New Zealand. You do it, and you save money. So choose You Do It, the affordable DIY Kiwi kitchen with a great reputation. Visit newsroom.co.nz.
And R&B. Flavour.
I'm Hayden Scott and I'm a knife maker. I make knives from my workshop at home in West Auckland. Yeah, my previous life I was a chef, did that for 25 years. But I had this knife making thing that I was doing and had been doing for some time. And so that transition from finishing that 25-year career and taking the plunge into full-time knife maker, I had been building up to that, but I still had to take a leap.
Here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference, but 2 degrees has the most satisfied customers. With Flex, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost center reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
Can I have what she's having?
Right, we're back with our panel, chatting here with Sarah Henry from R Media. She's the editorial director there, and Dave Latelli from BBM Motivation. I'm going to stick with the letters because that's a whole lot safer, as we've found out. But we were chatting before about AI, and we were talking about popping in to see the doctor, and then how often have you had a situation where you found the doctor Googling what they're supposed to be telling you?
Well, it's happened a couple of times, mainly around medications. If they're talking about certain options that there might be in that kind of space, and then they're kind of getting online and looking at that. Look, maybe it's not Google, maybe it's some doctory.
You'd hope it is, right? Because they always tell you,
databasey thing, but they
Google.
are looking at this and then going, oh, okay, I can see that there's this, and this.
Yeah. And you're thinking, why am I paying for this?
Well, yeah, and they're not cheap. A GP's appointment now, I had an online one the other day. It was $67, and I was online for about 4 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, blew my mind.
Yeah. But I guess, that's the problem, right? Access to healthcare. So many people can't even get in to see a doctor or afford it, right?
Yeah, well, they can't afford it, and they're having to wait too long, and then they don't go into, they don't present to the hospital until it's almost too late. That's when it costs them millions of dollars, you know?
Yeah. I guess, that's why you're on the fitness tip in the first place, to try and get people to sort of head it off, yeah?
Yeah, well, we run programs called From the Couch where we have nurses and doctors there so that we can catch it early. A lot of people, when you're getting their blood pressure checked, they're like bordering on a stroke, they wouldn't even know it.
Hey.
People that are type 2 diabetic don't even know it.
Wow.
You know, so you've got to catch it early.
Yeah. Oh, and catch it before you lift any kettlebells. I would have thought anyway. Now, look, a lot of people are getting quite exercised about the great spectacle of an All Blacks Springboks test. But will you both be watching?
Would you like to go first, Dave?
Yeah, probably not. I
Really?
might watch the haka.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I get excited about that, but yeah, I'm not really. Up the waz.
Yeah,
that's me.
So you're more interested in that Manly head-to-head, are you? And
more
hoping that
into
they
the
can
league.
make their way through.
Try and get into the top 4.
Is it that how it works? You've never been. That's never been.
I think for New Zealand, right? It depends what kind. Like you're either from a league family or a rugby family. I come from a league family. I'll support them in the World Cup if they make the final. but that's about it.
Wow, intense. And what about? Are we seeing a sort of a shift? I know. A lot's been made about this tour. I think we had a nice piece from Gregor Paul, the Herald rugby analyst, sort of saying maybe a bit too much. Maybe it's more about actually trying to make some dollars out of this. We saw, I think, the Lions tour and British and Irish Lions tour in Australia made their rugby union about 120 million or something. Wow. Big numbers involved.
Yeah, got them back in the black, didn't it? That
totally.
One tour. Yeah.
Turned it around for them. I'm sure the NZR is looking for the same kind of thing. What do they need to do you think, to try and
engage younger fans? Because if I talk to my dad about this weekend, he'll be all about it. If I talk to my 14-year-old son, he'll be like, meh.
Right.
You know.
He's looking for a Kansas City Chiefs
Well,
camp.
he's on YouTube or doing something that he's controlling, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's a connection that's been lost between that team and those players as people with their fans. And if you go back, to the sort of early 90s, late 80s, we really knew about who was in the team and what their family situations were and all that personal stuff. We cared about what the result was. And as time's gone on, the commercial beast has taken over, and they're an entity, not people.
I've interviewed a few All Blacks in my time, and you love them when they're young and fresh and they're still talking, and then after about a season, suddenly they're just sounding like they've got the party.
We've met with All Blacks before, and we couldn't get photos with them in front of certain things. They couldn't do interviews and say certain things. New Zealand rugby's been so poorly run; they're leaking money like a sieve. So they need to do something. Hopefully, it can generate some. But you're right; they've lost that grassroots.
Yeah, just the connection and the care with people really wanting to get behind them and have them win. There's still huge.
How much are tickets? How much are tickets? How much are kids' tickets to this All Blacks game?
I could not tell you. I imagine they're probably sold out. But there you go. That's on me. Maybe we'll go and check that out. I agree. I think let them off the leash. That would be my takeaway from this. Let them off the leash. Let's see a little bit more about who they are, but less structure there. Anyway, thanks very much this morning, Sarah Henry from Our Media and Dave Latelli from BBM Motivation. Right, it is just after 8:30, so we better get to the news with Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
Reassurance our justice system as a whole is working as some issues slip through the cracks. Chief Justice Dame Helen Wynne-Kelman has issued a stark warning in her annual report. She outlines a justice system weighed down by delays, too few judges, safety concerns and a lack of funding. New Zealand Law Society President Fraser Barton says compared to overseas, New Zealand's justice system ranks very highly.
We mustn't be complacent, that there is still a lot of work needed to make sure that we don't fall behind.
The Education Minister believes her government's initiatives are boosting interest in teaching. Newstalk ZB can reveal there's been 3,500 new domestic enrolments to initial teacher training so far this year, 30% higher than the same time last year. Erica Stanford says there's more positive talk about the profession than negative, adding she's always talking up teachers. She says people can see the amount of resource they're pumping into the front line, whether it's maths books, professional learning and development, or the new curriculum. A rift between National and ACT is emerging on Auckland Council's new density plan. It would allow more intensification near transport corridors and see parts of the city lose their special character status. David Seymour told a public meeting last week that he and supporters must impress on Housing Minister Chris Bishop that the plan is not necessary. He's concerned intensification will take place in areas without the required infrastructure, citing Parnell as an example. Bishop says the reality of the council's proposal is much less dramatic than critics claim. Nelson and Tasman mayors are banding together to push back the closure of a local sawmill. Carter Holt Harvey is expected to deliver its final decision on a proposal to shut its Eves Valley sawmill today, resulting in the loss of 142 jobs. Nelson's Nick Smith and Tasman's Tim King have written to the manufacturing company, pleading with them to defer closure for 12 months. Nurses around the country are set to begin their second day of industrial action over unsafe staffing levels in less than a week. More than 36,000 nurses organisation members employed by Health NZ are repeating Tuesday's strikes and putting tools down from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. today. The National Cyber Security Centre is urging businesses to up their defences against cyber criminals. Commissioned research from the agency has found 53% of small to medium Kiwi enterprises have been exposed to a cyber threat over the last 6 months. It's a jump from only 36% reported they'd been targeted in last year's survey. Mission Enablement Director Mike Yagish says that businesses they need to be preparing for a cybersecurity attack.
Herald NOW Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Broncos coach Michael Maguire has poo-pooed fullback Reece Walsh's decision to release a social media post of him drinking from a toilet ahead of tonight's NRL League match against the Storm in Brisbane. The Cadillac Formula One team has named IndyCar's Colton Herta as their test driver for 2026. Imane Khalif has appealed World Boxing's decision which bars her from events unless she undergoes genetic sex testing. The Algerian will miss competing at the World Championships starting tonight in Liverpool as a result.
Herald NOW Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora, good morning. Some wetter, windier weather moving up the western coast of the South Island today. Some heavy spells of rain and some thunderstorms. We'll find rain moving in towards Southland and Otago, but for dry weather, head towards the North Island and some pretty warm temperatures on the likes of the Hawke's Bay coast. We'll start off though down south with that wet weather moving northwards. Heavy spells of rain through Fiordland, some thunderstorms, patchy rain moving northwards through Southland and Otago through the daytime. For Canterbury, most of the time it's dry, bit of high cloud here and there, but not a bad looking story. The wetter weather on that western side though, again that risk of thunderstorms and hail moving up through Westland. For the lower parts of the North Island, dry and generally clear through Wairarapa, but the other side of the hills cloudier with an odd shower springing up as we head through the daytime. For some of the warmer temperatures, head to Hawke's Bay, 20 degrees Celsius in Napier, fine dry through the daytime, but a patchy cloud through the likes of the Bay of Plenty and Waitomo. Most of the time, I think it will stay dry. We could find an odd shower just run through the likes of Auckland and Northland, but very few and far between. Friday sees that wetter, windier weather moving up the country. There's already some severe weather watches in place for the likes of the Canterbury High Country and that western coast. Keep an eye on the latest watches and warnings, but it is more of an unsettled day for Friday.
Right, have you ever had that thing where, like, you've been working really hard, you get to the end of the year or you've got a holiday planned or something, and the first thing you just want to do is go straight to bed? I know that's usually me, actually. The rest is the real break there. Well, this is definitely one for you. Wellness brand Healtheries is sending a New Zealander to Costa Rica to compete in a sleeping contest with a real living sloth. The Hits host Ben Boyce caught up with the champion sleeper before he took off. And this segment was sponsored by Healtheries.
We all know someone who's a bit of a sleep champion. We're talking your nana at a rest home. We're talking a uni student after a big night out. We're talking me on a Friday night while I try and watch a movie with the family. But Healtheries have been looking for someone to represent New Zealand to take on an actual sloth in a sleep competition. It's sleep versus sloth. In New Zealand, we have found our champion. Over here right now, this is Andy from Nelson. Oh, okay. He's training. No, just kidding. I got him to do this. Andy, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Congratulations. You were going to Costa Rica to try and outsleep a sloth.
Yeah, thank you. It's a big honour.
Like a week ago, you didn't even know about this actually happening. This is kind of wild.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable. It's not the news you expect to get on a Monday morning.
Yeah. How do you feel about going over there? I mean, what are you looking forward to the most?
Definitely looking forward to seeing some of the animals, even though we have a bit of an adversarial relationship.
Yeah, you're kind of taking on one of those cute little sloths who can sleep quite a long time, right?
Yeah, we'll leave it in the sleep off.
Okay, yeah, a sleep off over there. Now, what about your routines? Like, what things can you bring being a New Zealand sleep champion?
Yeah, well, my big thing, pour myself a cup of tea every night.
Okay.
Have a yarn to the flatties, debrief about the day, and that just puts you in the right headspace, conk out.
Are the flatmate stories pretty boring, or must it make you go to sleep?
Depends on the day. I usually like to hear what sort of difficult situations they've got themselves into.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
And you can sleep for a long time, obviously. You feel confident that you can outsleep a sloth?
Yeah, big dozer.
Okay, okay. How many naps are we talking today, or just one long sleep?
I usually go one long one.
Okay, all right. So you've got some healthy sleep techniques. I was thinking no caffeine's quite good.
Yep.
Later in the day, no screen time. That's something I say to my teenage kids all the time. No screen time. What else? Go for a walk after dinner is quite good.
Yep.
You can listen to my radio show. That puts a lot of people to sleep. So any of those things you can use because, New Zealand and the world are counting on you.
Yeah, definitely. It's a big honour and I'm just hoping to make everyone proud.
Yeah, well, I hope you will. Good luck. Lovely to meet you. And if you want to tune in, you're right with everyone watching on a live stream?
Yeah, it's part of the beast, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, if you want to watch Andy sleep, you can go do some training now if you want. He's going back to sleep. You can tune into the live stream. Thanks to Healtheries, he's actually taking on a sloth in a sleep off in Costa Rica. You're going to Costa Rica. This is wild. I can't believe this is actually happening, but it is. Sleep versus sloth, thanks to Healtheries. All right, I'm going to help him do some training now. Good night. Back to you.
I might actually watch that. Might be a bit of an antidote to the big parade in Beijing there. You can watch that Sleep versus Sloth live stream on Wednesday the 10th of September from 3 o'clock at 3 p.m. on instagram.com/healtheries. Go take a look. Right, time to talk property thanks to our partners GJ Gardner. Changes to the foreign buyers ban announced earlier this week, and we were chatting about that, will allow those holding a golden visa to buy or build one home in New Zealand with a minimum value of $5 million. So, what properties have caught the eyes of wealthy foreigners? Chris Farry, who's the head of insights at Bailey's, joins me now to talk about that. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, Garth. Thanks for having me in.
Yeah, great to see you. Okay, so this is a particular kind of property and a particular kind of person who's looking for it.
Yep.
What are you kind of hearing is on the wish list?
Yeah, so I guess if you look at these investors that might be coming in, so they're dropping at least 15 million between the actual investments that will get them the visa and then the house. And they're also typically going to be based offshore. So I guess you have to put your rich person offshore hat on. And we think that they're more likely to be looking into some of the unique offerings in New Zealand, like around Queenstown, some of the holiday spots up through Northland, Bay of Islands, Bay of Plenty, rather than probably your traditional suburban house in Auckland. And the reason we think that is that if they were moving here permanently, they'll probably be a bit more concerned about convenience and sort of living in the city. But we think that that's probably not going to necessarily be the case.
Yeah, they're more likely to be building even, do you think?
Yeah, I think if you're spending upwards of $5 million on a house, I think there's a reasonable likelihood that you'll either build new or you'll at least do some pretty heavy customisations to the properties. And we think off the back of that, probably the tradespeople will be pretty good winners from this because there could be quite a bit of investment into housing associated with it.
Yeah. You imagine anywhere near a golf course is probably getting the extra look over at the moment.
100%,
Yeah. So I guess what we've heard in this debate is it's about houses, it's about investment. There's been a bit of backwards and forwards, certainly. A lot of the political opposition around this, certainly at parliamentary level, has been this will do something to the price of housing in New Zealand, or this is putting the interests of people who want to buy houses ahead of people who can't afford it. But I just sort of wonder, if you are talking about more than $5 million house or a build or whatever, what is the evidence that that could have some sort of drag effect on prices more generally?
Yeah, so I guess if you look at the housing market, obviously you've got a bit of a spread from lower to more expensive homes. Median house price in New Zealand at the moment is sitting just under 800,000. So that means that half of the homes are under 800,000. If you go up above 5 million, you're talking less than 0.5% of the market. So you're talking a very, very tiny part of the market. Most of the homes are way down the price spectrum. So as a result, changes to, I guess, demand in that area are unlikely to have a big impact. We think the other aspect that a lot of people aren't thinking about at the moment is there might be some additional buyers come through, but equally there's going to be a lot of vendors that are going to want to take advantage of that. And if we look over the past couple of days, probably for every call that's come through from someone thinking about the buy side, we've had just as many vendors thinking about their sell side.
Right, because there's a market there now. And things have been a little bit flat, things have been a little bit underdone, and so perhaps you might have been thinking, I can hold out for a bit longer. Yeah, well, particularly if, in that 5 mil plus bracket, you've got more of the older generation, so thinking about maybe downsizing. They might have been holding off for a couple of years just due to the downturn, and now they're thinking, actually, there might be this cool opportunity with some of these offshore buyers come through, should I list now? So, yeah, it could be just as much impact from that. Right, enough tell, let's have some shows, shall we? You've got a place to show us the sort of thing you're talking about in Queenstown? Yeah, so we've brought a couple of examples. So we've got this property here, this is on Arrowtown, Lake Hayes Road. This one here is asking just over 6 mil, so slightly over 5, but gives you a sense of what you can buy up around that price range. That view's pretty crazy, isn't it? Yeah, it's a beautiful home. Wow, and I mean, this is your classic kind of, it looks like you can't see the neighbours at all either, so that's, I imagine, a big factor too. You kind of want a wee bit of splendid isolation and not necessarily people necking over the fence. 100%, like when you get into that price range, privacy is quite a big factor. Yeah, right. Now, we've also got a place that you wanted to show us in Arnie Crescent in Remuera, which is your sort of pretty blue-ribboned address for an Auckland buyer, isn't it? Yeah, 100%. So this property's asking about 5.5 mil at the moment, gives you a sense of what you're buying around that mark. Sort of 4 beds, nice home, beautiful swimming pool, all the bells and whistles. Not necessarily your like Barbie dream house on the huge piece of land, but nonetheless like a really beautiful home. Maybe more if you're a foreign investor who's got a pile of cash and, as they say, wants to maybe be close to where their kids and families are going to connect with other people. Perhaps they're looking at putting down the roots rather than sort of necessarily just jetting in for 3 or 4 weeks of the year. That's right. Like if you were looking to fully relocate, maybe you'd go into Auckland, you'd go into these sorts of suburbs. I guess we haven't brought examples, but the other one would be maybe renovated villas through Herne Bay, might be sitting just above that 5 mil range as well. Yeah, wow. Okay, well, keep the calls, keep us posted about the calls that are coming from both sides, 100%. Buyers and sellers. That's Chris the Head of Insights for Bailey's. And next, Riley Kennedy has the latest business news thanks to our partners, 2 Degrees.
Speaker to the acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all of it? You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university. My message to the unions is very clear. Don't use
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GGs because of the good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
After 20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Kaiwaka's been in the game for 200 seasons. 50 years of facing up to the elements, getting the job done, and coming back for more. And that's guaranteed for a lifetime. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
Of course we can set up the new smart TV for you. We could also put it on the wall for you too.
Want to keep your family safe online? We've got tips for that.
Yeah, I can show you how to use the AI on your laptop.
Teaching the kids to do laundry? These washing machines auto-dispense the perfect amount of detergent, making it super easy to learn.
Wait, what's a Ninja Creamy?
Got tech questions? We've got answers. With 66 stores nationwide, your tech experts ready to help.
Right, now I've got a confession, and it's a real one. Time to chat with Chelsea Daniels from the Front Page podcast. We'll get to Riley shortly. And it's topical because Chelsea has been talking about why innocent people confess to crimes that they don't commit. So,
well, you did commit that one.
I did. So that was an honest, straight-up
confession
that everybody can make their judgments on.
But, you know, have you ever sat down and watched one of those Netflix documentaries or you read something in the paper and they're like, well, if they didn't do it, then why did they confess to it? It's one of the most damning pieces of evidence that a prosecution can put towards a court, because that's, you know, you on a tape, you on a video confessing to something. But people do. They do confess to things that they didn't do. They are actually innocent, and we've seen that time and time again, right? Just this week, the case of Harry Matchett came up. He's looking for compensation for being in prison for a few years. We've also got Taina Pora, Alan Hall. It happens, and around the world as well. You've got the West Memphis 3. They're making a murderer series. Birmingham 6. All, you know, countless times. So
You've been binge watching, haven't you?
You know what I do on the weekends, Garth. So I spoke to forensic psychologist Razi Metwa. He is basically one of those people who the prosecution or the defence asks to go and evaluate someone if they're fit for trial, or if they, you know, didn't do something that or looks over their confessions. Basically, we spoke about the different kinds of confessions. A full confession is obvious. You just made one before. A partial confession is something like probably, or I could have done that, or I see your point. If you say so,
you're kind of going along with the person.
You're kind of going along with the person who's interviewing you, and many people confess to things that they don't do. You know, look at it in the schoolyard, for instance. You might not want your mate to get into trouble, or you might, you know, say that you did the hit the vase over so mum doesn't yell at your sibling or something. Or you may just apologise to something just to get it over with. You know, if I apologise, then this argument will end. And many of those same things happen, but it's just the consequence is being imprisoned for life for murder.
I'll tell you a little tip. Years ago, I was told when interviewing a nervous sports person, just ask them, would you say, and then say something. And then generally they will say what you just said.
Generally,
which is like, you're kind of putting words in people's mouths though, aren't you?
Yeah, and it's really easy to do. And I mean, we spoke about why people might do these in police interviews, and back in the day we thought, well, obviously it's because people are getting beaten and assaulted, and electric shock treatment was one of them back in the day, and obviously you'd say anything to get out of those. But it can be a lot more subtle than that. It can be things like, you know, you can get home to your family sooner, or if you say this, you can go home. You know, like those subtle kind of incentives as well make people confess to things that they didn't do. And around the world as well, we've got interviews that go on for hours and hours and hours, you know. But what's important as well, though, at the moment, he said police, he looks at police interviews, you know, almost daily for his job. He reads through the transcripts and he watches them. He said that police does do an overwhelmingly excellent job, and things like giving breaks during a long interview and things like that. So yeah, really interesting.
We'll give you a break during this one as well. We're not going to go on for a while, I promise this morning. Chelsea Daniels with the Front Page podcast, and you can catch that later today on www.nzherald.co.nz, I suspect. Right, it's time to talk business now. Thanks to our partners 2 Degrees, the price of butter is slumping, and new food labelling rules are planned to cut red tape for exporters. Earlier, I was joined by Riley Kennedy from Business Desk, and we started off with a look at those butter prices.
Yesterday's global dairy trade auction, the butter price fell 2.5% to about $7,000 a tonne. If you cast your mind back a month or two ago, you couldn't go a day without a headline about butter prices. Quite bizarrely, the Finance Minister called Miles Hurrell, the Fonterra boss, down for a please explain that didn't go particularly well.
Oh, we saw that all over the place, didn't we?
Yeah, so, but that $7,000 a tonne mark, that's like that's down about $1,000 off its peak. Right. So at every auction since about May, the butter price has actually fallen. I spoke to one analyst yesterday, and they said it's probably got about $1,000 a tonne to go, so it'll probably fall another.
Right.
Yeah.
There's momentum downwards.
Momentum downwards. Interestingly, actually, speaking of China, yesterday's auction, 80% of the butter sold on the platform went to China. It was their largest ever purchase of butter.
Wow.
Off the platform. But the reason for that is, well, the reason the butter price is going down is there's just a whole lot of cheap butter around at the moment.
Can we get some?
No. But the Europeans, there's a lot of cheap butter coming out of there. Yeah. Their butter price is down like 15% in the past month. The US is fallen as well, so that just naturally will drag our butter price down as well.
So we're not going to see like the COVID queues with people hoarding toilet paper and taking it on the plane. We're not going to see people coming back from their summer holiday in Europe with a case of butter or something from Sainsbury's.
I would say that European butter's not as good as ours, but I also wouldn't be running out to Woolworths and trying to get your cheap butter just yet.
Yeah, so it's a wee bit like petrol prices and oil prices. It takes a while for it to
take a while to flow through.
But it could be coming.
Could be.
In time for Christmas, when we're told we should all eat loads more anyway. Look, speaking of food, there's been an announcement about food labelling rules. Who's this for the benefit of? What's happening here?
Yeah, so from the end of September, 25th or something, the food exporters, they won't need to apply for an exemption of New Zealand standards for a country they're importing into.
Right.
Which is...
So this is if you're making something, a food product, and you're shipping it overseas, say to China, for example, you've got to comply with all their rules about what's on the packet, haven't you?
Yes.
But you've also got to comply with New Zealand's?
Yeah, well, that would be the case. So
even if it's not going to be on the shelves here?
Yes, and then you had to apply for an exemption product by product, so it seemed slightly odd.
I guess they're trying to sort of protect anything that comes from here so that it meets our standards as well as theirs, but it seems like a lot of faff.
Yeah, so now you just don't have to.
Oh, good.
And the exporters think this is great. Dairy companies said, this is excellent, we can actually go and, I think their words were, make it easier to create new high-value products without, having to... You had to gazette it. It was very odd.
That sounds very old-fashioned.
So the Food Safety Minister, Andrew Hoggard, has sent his officials away to work on the dietary supplements.
Because they're not covered, anything with a therapeutic claim or any of that kind of stuff. It's a wee bit trickier because you want to make sure that, I guess the worst case is you send something and it turns up in the market in China and it's no good, and everybody from all New Zealand product gets blamed unfairly as a result. We've sort of seen stuff like that happen before, haven't we?
Yeah.
Now look, just before we go, there's a wee bit of trouble on the market there for one takeover of a company, Vital.
Vital, yeah. So it's vitally important the shareholders engage in this. So this is quite interesting. Vital's quite small on the NZX, but it's been taken over by Tate, which is like a critical communications provider.
They're doing like the emergency radio for the police and the ambulance and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so they're trying to take over Vital, but for the offer to go through, it's got to have 90% acceptance. It's currently only got about 69%. It's got to get to 90. ACC is holding out. They won't say whether they're going to accept or not. But there is also a potential, there's quite a few shareholders that just aren't engaged. They either just don't know whether they're a shareholder, just forgotten about their shares in Vital. It is very small, so it's probably quite easy to do. But the ghost holders, as they're called, might tip it over? Yeah, might tip it over.
Right.
So you might want to check if you're a Vital shareholder.
It was Riley Kennedy from Business Desk, and we talk business every day, thanks to our partners, 2 Degrees. Right, we're just getting some news in from overseas there, from Portugal, where at least 15 people have been killed and more than 20 injured after a cable car crashed during rush hour in the Portuguese capital of Lisbon. The incident happened around about 6 p.m. local time, and that's 5 o'clock here, in the middle of the city. Emergency services are still on the scene and several people are still trapped inside. About 43 passengers were reportedly on board when it went off the rails and crashed into the centre of Lisbon. So keep an eye on nzherald.co.nz for more news on that. And with more news of the hour, we have Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
Reassurance our justice system as a whole is working as some issues slip through the cracks. Chief Justice Dame Helen Wynne-Kelman has issued a stark warning in her annual report. She outlines a justice system weighed down by delays, too few judges, safety concerns and a lack of funding. New Zealand Law Society President Fraser Barton says compared to overseas, New Zealand's justice system ranks very highly.
We mustn't be complacent, that there is still a lot of work needed to make sure that we don't fall behind.
The Education Minister believes her government's initiatives are boosting interest in teaching. Newstalk ZB can reveal there's been 3,500 new domestic enrolments to initial teacher training so far this year, 30% higher than the same time last year. Erica Stanford says there's more positive talk about the profession than negative, adding she's always talking up teachers. She says people can see the amount of resource they're pumping into the front line, whether it's maths books, professional learning and development, or the new curriculum. A rift between National and ACT is emerging on Auckland Council's new density plan. It would allow more intensification near transport corridors and see parts of the city lose their special character status. David Seymour told a public meeting last week that he and supporters must impress on Housing Minister Chris Bishop that the plan is not necessary. He's concerned intensification will take place in areas without the required infrastructure, citing Parnell as an example. Bishop says the reality of the council's proposal is much less dramatic than critics claim. Nelson and Tasman mayors are banding together to push back the closure of a local sawmill. Carter Holt Harvey is expected to deliver its final decision on a proposal to shut its Eves Valley sawmill today, resulting in the loss of 142 jobs. Nelson's Nick Smith and Tasman's Tim King have written to the manufacturing company, pleading with them to defer closure for 12 months. Nurses around the country are set to begin their second day of industrial action over unsafe staffing levels in less than a week. More than 36,000 nurses organisation members employed by Health NZ are repeating Tuesday's strikes and putting tools down from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. today. The National Cyber Security Centre is urging businesses to up their defences against cyber criminals. Commissioned research from the agency has found 53% of small to medium Kiwi enterprises have been exposed to a cyber threat over the last 6 months. It's a jump from only 36% reported they'd been targeted in last year's survey. Mission Enablement Director Mike Yagish says that businesses they need to be preparing for a cybersecurity attack.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Broncos coach Michael Maguire has poo-pooed fullback Reece Walsh's decision to release a social media post of him drinking from a toilet ahead of tonight's NRL League match against the Storm in Brisbane. The Cadillac Formula One team has named IndyCar's Colton Herta as their test driver for 2026. Imane Khalif has appealed World Boxing's decision which bars her from events unless she undergoes genetic sex testing. The Algerian will miss competing at the World Championships starting tonight in Liverpool as a result.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora, good morning. Some wetter, windier weather moving up the western coast of the South Island today. Some heavy spells of rain and some thunderstorms. We'll find rain moving in towards Southland and Otago, but for dry weather, head towards the North Island and some pretty warm temperatures on the likes of the Hawke's Bay coast. We'll start off though down south with that wet weather moving northwards. Heavy spells of rain through Fiordland, some thunderstorms, patchy rain moving northwards through Southland and Otago through the daytime. For Canterbury, most of the time it's dry, bit of high cloud here and there, but not a bad looking story. The wetter weather on that western side though, again that risk of thunderstorms and hail moving up through Westland. For the lower parts of the North Island, dry and generally clear through Wairarapa, but the other side of the hills cloudier with an odd shower springing up as we head through the daytime. For some of the warmer temperatures, head to Hawke's Bay, 20 degrees Celsius in Napier, fine dry through the daytime, but a patchy cloud through the likes of the Bay of Plenty and Waitomo. Most of the time, I think it will stay dry. We could find an odd shower just run through the likes of Auckland and Northland, but very few and far between. Friday sees that wetter, windier weather moving up the country. There's already some severe weather watches in place for the likes of the Canterbury High Country and that western coast. Keep an eye on the latest watches and warnings, but it is more of an unsettled day for Friday.
Cheers, John. And that's Herald Now. For now, we'll be back from 7 tomorrow morning. For more news, you better go to nzherald.co.nz. A quick shout out first, though, to our partners Forsyth Bar, You Do It, Barkers, Max, 2 Degrees, GJ Gardner, Dilmar, and Noel Leeming. From the team at Herald Now, thanks for joining us and see you tomorrow.